Maybe you thought we wouldn't come through. We are always here for you. Not like a wet blanket. Nor a warm, comforting one, necessarily. More like a cape or a cloak with a hood. Is it just for accentuating how special each of you are? For sure. Protective from the elements. Not that many elements today that you are experiencing. Saul had quite the emotional morning, sparked by nothing in particular. He often weeps. Not often, even in a week or a month. Not the right use of the word or assumption of the word, but he often weeps in order to, from his point of view, release stresses built up, and then searches for the reason why he is weeping while he is weeping. You don't always need a reason, but he has learned the importance of letting it all hang out. Snotty nose, watery eyes, flowing down his face and merging with the mucus. Numerous Kleenexes, tissues. He likens it to throwing up, in which you never know when it's going to happen. It's good for the soul and the body. And you really can't control when it will end. Nor should you. Foreign vomiting the body is trying to right whatever situation it is facing. And in weeping, the emotional aspects of your physical experience are letting go, or trying to force your letting go of them. Saul learned the importance of facing emotions and letting them go through weeping via having 2 panic attacks several years ago, in which he was sure on the second one that he was dying. They are very scary if you've never had them before. And he did not know why he was having them to begin with. But he had experienced a death close to him, and he had tried to not let death affect him emotionally, especially since all he had learned about consciousness continuing post-physical death. Therefore, it did not make sense to him why he should be affected physically by emotions he did not consider logical, considering the personality who had left did so obviously of their own free will, having passed in a mere 8 hours from getting some rather bad news, and not via physical suicide either. And so he always looks for reasons why he is weeping. And again, he is wanting us to note that he does not weep that often, for he does lead a rather joyful life, considering he lives in a basement, has 2 jobs, and for the moment is physically apart from his daughter, although not for long. She is coming to visit next month. He is well aware that if you try to encase your emotions or events sparking emotions, let's say in a jar, and you put the jar up on a shelf, he knows that that jar will eventually explode. Not necessarily in violence, but the emotions need to flow as freely as one tries to be in the flow of life. And he did not know how this morning's display of emotional explosions would affect our connection or the transmission and recording. Of course, they would not, do not, and will not. Question as to whether there are emotions on this side, the non-physical side, not as intensely as you experience them, but to say that there is no emotion would be incorrect. It is more a remembrance of how certain entities who have been physical, and not just on your side, not just on your planet, but in other dimensions and systems, however you want to call them, remember having had certain or all emotions and have gone through them and have graduated from having to deal with them on a daily, yearly, lifetime basis. There is that collective memory. Otherwise, what would be the point of having emotions to experience, to learn from in the first place? If you learn anything and graduate from it affecting you as a personality, what would be the point of then forgetting that you learned it? That could be argued to be a misstep. It is true, however, that we do not allow those memories of having emotions to tie us down or bind us in how we experience our reality now. In a sense, you could say there are no emotions on this side in that way. But there is empathy, and we empathize with the emotions that each of you are going through at any time, positive or negative. We are genuinely happy, as you would describe it. And when things do not go right, one could argue that we are more along the lines of, if we were to comment, it would be, well, that is unfortunate. But hopefully, the person or community or nation or race, human race, can learn from this disappointment. That is more the closest thing to expressing emotions from this vantage point, from this perspective. It is all right to still, it would be a crime not to have emotions on your side, to not deal with them, go through them, to deny emotions as being important is not the way to see physical life and experience. If I don't want to have depression or weeping, then I shouldn't have laughter and joy in order to be a more enlightened individual. Something that ridiculous to live by or justify or adopt is not the best route, although some do that. And then they find they get into real trouble and their jars multiply. And then they really explode, either outward or inward or both. Don't hasten to leave your emotions behind when you leave your body behind. That is our advice for today, not just for soul, but for all of you. There was a question as to whether we speaking now are a part of Saul's whole self or his entity. None of your whole selves can fit into one physical being at any given time on the planet. The analogy would be, scientists have always said that you only use 12% of your brain. That would be roughly the percentage of the whole self in any one person. And the entity includes numerous whole selves experiencing the planet at any one time or spread out over lifetimes. It is not impossible to communicate with the whole self, but as you might imagine, they are quite busy. When you haven't even realized you are a part, a percentage of just the whole self, then you might be able to imagine how busy the entity is. And you might think, you're right. Why bother them? Why even think we can reach them? But we are all one. And you definitely communicate with your entities more often than you think. It is just a matter of perspective and taking the time to listen or get a sense or feel, not physically, for a greater and greater sense of yourself, a wholeness. A loaf of bread. There may be only 2 slices left. Yet that is evidence that there was a whole, and that there is a whole. You don't deny the whole only because you only see 2 slices. Even if you forgot that you are the one who ate the other slices, or the family members, or if at a business, other customers. And yet it seems like some of you do deny that there is a whole loaf of bread only because there are only 2 slices or 1 sandwich left. How much sense does that make? What is equally disturbing is the denial that there are other types of bread. You might not enjoy certain types of bread to dine on, but is that the right course to take, of denying that there are other types of bread and that other people might enjoy those types? And you thought that your emotional release might hamper our connection today. It is perfectly fine to release emotions in a controlled way. Controlled, violent way is even fine. And by that we mean through physical aggression toward a being that will not feel pain. And by being we mean a sporting event, a golf ball, a batted ball, a kicked ball, a punching bag. We use the term being loosely from your point of view because you do not believe those things are alive. Many people use exercise to stay in shape, not realizing it is also a stress relief of emotion. Many realize it. They get upset and go to the gym or go out and play sport. All we mean to say is there is never an excuse for violence upon consciousness in releasing your emotions, but release they must be and should be, so you can learn from them. So take up your tennis rackets and golf clubs and baseball bats and enjoy the weather. No one ever thinks that the storm won't pass, and everyone mostly looks forward to the sun breaking through the clouds. It happens